Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Norfolk Select Board. My name is Kevin Calkin. I am joined by my associates Jim Lehan and Anita Mecklenburg. We're going to kick off our meeting tonight in the way that we typically do, with everybody please joining us for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. Justin, would you mind taking us through our very concise agenda this evening?
Yeah, brief agenda tonight. Tonight, the board is going to be considering and possibly voting on the tax classification or tax rates. We'll also discuss approval of a charge for the Norfolk School Building Committee, along with some general updates.
Very good. Thank you so much. So our first item tonight is our public comment period. If there is anybody who would like to share for public comment tonight, please identify such by raising your hand. Looks like nobody. On to number 2. Please consider and vote on the use classification of all properties in the town for the purposes of fiscal year 24. Justin.
Yes. So as part of an annual process, the board has to consider setting tax rates for fiscal year 24. This is a process that our assessing team generally does on a yearly basis. It takes into account town total value, et cetera, and then it comes up with a proposed tax rate. The board will consider several different exemptions and so forth, and we'll have our assessor just give a high-level introduction how we get the tax rate and what the proposal is before the board to consider for this year.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Justin, and welcome, Don.
Thank you. Thank you for having me tonight. So I think Justin really stole my fire there, but we are here tonight to do just that, and it's pretty much the same as it's been in the past. The town hasn't changed a lot. Percentages are all about the same as far as residential and commercial and industrial. We are, the Board of Assessors is recommending to the Select Board tonight that we do just that and consider the 3 options. I'll roll through here a little bit just to... So basically, our 3 exemptions to consider tonight. The first one would be the open space exemption. The second one is the small commercial exemption. And the third one is the residential exemption. So we're considering those 3 items, or asking you to consider those 3 items, along with keeping the single tax rate or going with a split tax rate. I believe you guys have already had a chance to review the packet and seen everything in there. And like I said, if nothing changes tonight, these are the numbers that we would be considering going forward. That would be the tax rate with approval from the Department of Revenue. So the Board of Assessors is asking the Select Board tonight to consider adopting the single tax rate, consider not accepting the open space exemption, not accepting the residential exemption, and not accepting the small commercial exemption. And if you have any questions at all in the packet, I can go back through the pages.
Yeah, I think that there was a lot of great information in the presentation, one that we have basically heard annually for at least as long as I've been on the board. So we appreciate all the detail and the background into how the tax rate is set. I think you hit a good point to identify that we're not voting to set the tax rate tonight.
That's correct.
That's basically calculated on the budget that was passed back in the spring.
That's right.
But we are taking into account and consideration the 4 local options that we do have the ability to vote on tonight.
That's right.
I did just want to touch on briefly that number that you identified as the tax rate for this coming year will be $15.57. Which I am understanding that is the lowest tax rate that we have seen since 2011.
That's correct.
Does that seem right?
Yes, correct.
Fantastic, thank you.
Yep.
Jim, Anita, any questions for Don related to?
No, I have none. No. Thanks, Don. As always, your work is always right on. Thanks.
I appreciate it as well, and it is very similar to last year, so thank you.
Okay.
Just to talk about something, one of the
Sure.
biggest questions I get is about the small commercial exemption. And in some cases, folks like to try to correlate that to support for small business here in town. Can you just briefly talk off the cuff about how that would impact the small businesses and why we're recommending no?
The biggest reasons for not considering doing that exemption is a lot of the criteria that's involved in it. You need no more than 10 employees. The total property cannot exceed $1 million. In most cases, the businesses they're not the owner. It's usually the owner, which will benefit from this package, so it's difficult to track. So it tends not to benefit, which is the reason why we usually ask not to accept it. And again, so the tax benefit would go to the business owner, not to the businesses themselves. So, which is typically the case in plazas and small mom and pops like we have here in town. So, those are the reasons why and there's only 14 other towns at this point that do it other than out of the 351 towns. We're just not set up for that type of exemption.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Well, if nobody has any other questions, Todd, anything you wanted to add?
Great job. Got nothing to add.
Beautiful, thank you. No other questions, Jim,
No.
Anita?
No?
All right, well, in that case, I would take a motion to approve the recommendations as outlined in the packet.
I move to adopt a single tax rate for fiscal year 2024. Is it 2024?
Yep,
Do we need to do them one by one? Or
I would
can-
do them one by one.
Okay. All right, so first we have a motion to adopt a single tax rate versus a split tax rate for the purposes, as Don had mentioned, of not encumbering our small businesses in town for a very, very small benefit to the residential. Do I hear a second?
You do.
Hearing a second, all those in favor say aye.
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 I move not to adopt the open space exemption.
Second?
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. I move not to adopt the residential exemption.
Second.
Hearing a second, all those in favor say aye.
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 I move not to adopt the small commercial exemption.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Don, thank you so much once again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
for having
Thank you,
me.
Don. Thank you, Todd.
That will bring us to our next item this evening, which is to please consider the approval of a charge for the Norfolk School Building Committee. Justin.
Yes, so in the board's packet, you have a copy of our bylaw in terms of committees for major building projects, as well as a draft charge that the school superintendent and the school committee chair sort of worked on. I'll allow probably Ingrid to speak to the charge if there's any questions, but it was drafted largely based on the Fire Station Building Committee charge and previous Freeman Kennedy Building Committee. Just for the board's information, the composition of the committee would consist of two school committee members, 3 members of the committee appointed by the select board, the school superintendent, the town administrator, and the building commissioner is going to serve as an ex officio and a non-voting member. Other than that, I don't know if Ingrid wants to add anything.
No, I think basically we did use the model from the, do you need me to come up?
Come up to
Come up or use the mic.
Completely up to you.
Yeah.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, that's better.
So we modeled the charge after the fire station charge, and consistent with the article that we brought forward to town meeting, which was to appropriate additional funding to explore a possible modular solution to the enrollment growth. We pushed AI3 for a proposal, and they recommended looking at 2 different models, a single-story versus a 2-story, and giving a range of prices based on the level of quality of the building material. Additionally, we had talked at town meeting about the doing a new demographic study and awarding a contract for a private demographer or company to come in and reassess enrollment trends in Norfolk. And if those enrollment projections came in lower than we are anticipating, then potentially redefining and reevaluating the scope of the current proposed project and modifying that accordingly. And then, should there be a third viable option that is presented, then we would recommend that that go to the select board for approval and the school committee for approval, and then be explored within the scope of the already appropriated funding. So I think we've defined all of that. The scope and power and duties are very similar to the fire station, although for this, it's just a smaller scale feasibility in the immediacy, awarding the firm the contract for the demographic study, overseeing the expanded feasibility, and then reviewing the new feasibility study report, as well as the report that was issued in May of 2023, and making a final recommendation to the town. So I think, Justin, the membership of the committee came from the town bylaws, which say 2 members of the board that it's representing. So I think we've done everything consistent with that. So that's what's before you.
Cool.
Fantastic, thank you. Have we done any kind of marketing or anything about the positions out to the community to receive interest, or have we not really taken that step yet?
Not yet, because we felt that the charge should actually be approved. We were hoping to just get that expedited, but then we have to have a formal charge, and because it's under your scope, we felt that you should see this before we put it out.
Got you. So pending approval tonight of the charge, do we need to vote to approve the charge? Yep. Yes. Pending approval of the charge tonight, then we would move forward with trying to get this out there and try to collect some interest.
Absolutely. We've had a few people express interest after town meeting, and we told them the charge will be published and they should send information on interest to the select board.
Perfect. And do we have a medium for them to do that via the website?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So Ingrid and I will collaborate in this, assuming the board approves this charge, but we'll put it on the website. There'll be an application. We'll promote it on social media as well.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Jim, any questions?
No, the only question I had was just how it's going to be communicated to the public so that it's a broad audience that receives it. And that is the case, I hope.
Yes.
Okay.
Anita, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Good. Thank you so much. So to that end, I would take a motion to approve the charge for the Norfolk School Building Committee.
So moved.
Second.
Hearing a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Ingrid.
We're on a little bit of a shot clock tonight, so we're trying to get it done. Thank you so much, Ingrid. All right, that brings us to our discussion items for tonight. Justin, what do we have on the docket?
I'll be brief as well. Just quick update for the public in terms of the holiday schedule for Town Hall. Town Hall closed at 1 p.m. here on Wednesday, and obviously we're closed on Thanksgiving. Typically we're closed on Friday already, so just want to let people know that. 1 p.m. on Wednesday.
Very good, thank you. Select board updates. I don't think I have any from my end. Just if you want a Christmas tree, the lot is open over by Dunkin' Donuts from the Norfolk Lions. 9 to 9 on the weekends, 3 to 9 on the weekdays. And I do know that the day after Thanksgiving is typically a very busy day that's going to be well-staffed with individuals ready to very securely fasten a tree to one's roof.
That happens to be one of my assigned days.
There it is. Start stretching now. I don't have any other updates. Anita?
No updates?
Jim?
No, just maybe, yeah, actually, yes. I attended the Massachusetts School Committee Convention down in Hyannis and found it very, very interesting. It's a pleasure to know that you don't know what you think you know sometimes, because you learn, and it was a very educational process. I did participate in a panel down there, me and 5 superintendents, so I was the token school committee member, and I mean token school committee member. But there were some very interesting new approaches to working with some of the capital needs of schools that, quite frankly, we had not thought of. And we are going to talk about that tonight, actually, at the school committee meeting when I leave here. There are some opportunities, I think, for us to be a little bit more creative on how we look towards long-term capital needs and how we can self-fund some of this and not continually put this burden back on the towns. So I found it a very useful meeting. It was a good time. As I'm sure we will find the one for the select people, our select board, would be the same when we go into Boston.
January, that's right.
Yep.
Boston's much nicer than Hyannis in the wintertime.
I hear this in the winter.
Speaking of MMA, you just reminded me of one thing, Jim. I was on a legislative update this morning and understand that they are tweaking some of the standards associated to the MBTA zoning guidelines that will now allow for communities to be able to require multi-use, commercial and residential. Whereas before, I think one of our biggest frustrations with the program was that it needed to be fully residential. So I did just want to call out that it appears that has been changed. Obviously, we'll wait for verification before we start planting flags in the ground, but I did want to just express some appreciation to Rich, because I know he was a big part of advocating for that as part of the changes with the state. So that's great news. I'm glad to hear that they're hearing some of that feedback and appreciate Rich going through the motions to be able to get that in. All right, so I believe that does it for updates. Updates good? All right, let's move on to the report of the warrants. Do we have a motion to approve the warrants?
I move to approve the warrants as posted in the agenda.
Second?
Hearing a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And since there are no minutes to be approved, we will not be approving minutes tonight. Justin, do we have anything else for this evening?
Nothing else.
Very good. Jim, anything else?
No, thank you. And I appreciate you meeting
No.
at 6 so that I can
So our next meeting is on
get to the next meeting.
December 5th. We will meet again.
We will. And apologies in advance. I was called away to Phoenix, so I will be joining that meeting remotely now.
That is when, December 7th? 5th?
The 5th.
5th.
Yep. All right. With that, I would take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I will second.
Hearing a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. And that is unanimous. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening and a wonderful Thanksgiving.